Thank you, Ryoshin. Thank you, Shinryu Roshi. So can everybody hear me okay? Good. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Kojin, and I hope you're all doing okay after yesterday's hurricane. I got off relatively unscathed. All my rugs are outside drying right now, but you know, it's minimal to what some other people have been going through the last day. I want to say a very special welcome to those of you that I don't know, those of you that are new or newish. It's amazing that most of you I haven't met in person, but after a year and a half of practicing online, I really feel, you know, a deep connection to so many of you. And you know, it's amazing how Sangha has really thrived online. You know, I never would have thought it was possible. So Sangha, it's one of the 3 jewels of Buddhism. Most of us, when we first come to start studying Buddhism, are introduced to these 3 jewels or these 3 treasures pretty early on. There's the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And throughout our Zen training, these 3 jewels are repeatedly emphasized as pivotal and inseparable from practice. They're the ground and the path, and also the fruition, expressions of practice and our awakened nature. And when I first started practicing and studying Buddhism, I was really drawn to a couple of the jewels. There was the Buddha, our awakened nature. I was all about that. Whatever that guy was having, I definitely wanted some of it. And then there's the Dharma, the teachings that point directly to the heart of reality, that point to the heart of our lives. Definitely wanted some of that too. But then there was the 3rd jewel, Sangha, or community. And I always had a lot of resistance to that. Maybe some of you can relate to this, but for much of my life, I felt that community was something that I could do without. I've always believed things would be easier if I just went about things by myself. And quite honestly, I felt I could do things much better if everyone just got the hell out of my way. And that's why I always despised group projects in school, team sports, and even in romantic relationships. I always felt like I could be an island unto myself. And maybe that's why I'm single. No, I think I shared too much during my Dharma talks. But you know, it was with a lot of encouragement and prodding from my first Buddhist teacher that I began to seek out a Buddhist community to practice with. And it's how I eventually came to practice with the Village Zendo Sangha. And still, many years later, I'm constantly amazed and reminded of the depth and the power of Sangha. And that I've only really begun to understand how much community has the power to lift us up, to carry us, to teach us. And how we, in turn, lift up others, carry them along, and teach them. Some of you know that I lived and practiced at a residential Zen center for a year and a half, Yokoji Zen Mountain Center. It was a year and a half of a lot of zazen, a lot of work practice, and not enough sleep. And when I first made the decision to leave New York and practice there, I thought I was leaving behind all the crap in my life, all my difficult interpersonal relationships, my ex-boyfriends, all the stresses I had in my daily life. And then I would finally, once I got to the monastery, be just like that image of the serene, peaceful Buddha up on my altar. But of course, the joke was on me. It turns out anything we try to escape rears its ugly head, no matter where we run to. And when practicing at a monastic center with a bunch of people on too little sleep and too much zazen, you could say that interpersonal relationships and their difficulties can become even more heightened, even more abrasive. But that was the truest gift of my residential practice, Sangha. I really came to appreciate the beauty and the power of community, the difficult parts and all. As we practice zazen, as we sit, we get to know our own true, clear, and innate nature, our Buddha nature. And as we reveal that nature within ourselves, we start to see it in others too. We start to see this shared Buddha nature in those around us. Even here on our computer screens, I see little Buddhas in little Zoom boxes. And, you know, we might even start to see the Buddha nature in all of those confused little Buddhas that are spewing QAnon conspiracy theories. Though I'd say that's a very advanced practice, and I don't even know if I'm there yet. But I found that Sangha is a powerful instrument to realizing our interdependence, our interconnected nature. Sangha is an instrument to seeing interdependence in action. It's the functioning of interdependence. Joshin Roshi made a beautiful analogy recently, likening Sangha to our liturgy practice. One bell is sounded, and another bell simply responds. Another bell sounds, and together as one body, we bow. And this reminds me of oryoki and service when we'd sit together on retreat. Often on the first day of session, a lot of people are very new to their service positions. And so we're kind of bumping into each other, you know, ringing bells at the wrong time and anxiously looking to our liturgy master for cues. But then each day we get a little bit smoother and a little bit smoother, till by the last day of session, it feels like we're simply flowing and dancing around one another. And if someone makes a mistake, we include that mistake as part of the dance. And the mistakes, there's a secret. The mistakes are actually what makes the dance alive and beautiful. So practicing community, I kind of see it as the process of polishing rocks in a rock tumbler. You throw a bunch of coarse, jagged rocks in a small space, add some pressure, add some grit, spin them around, and eventually they come out smoother. And as we learn to function a bit more skillfully within, you know, this little Zen practice setting, then we learn to function a bit more skillfully in the world too. After we finish zazen, then we walk out our door. Then we throw ourselves into the rock tumbler of interpersonal relationships, family, work, politics. Being here online with our Village Zendo Sangha, then going out into our neighborhood sanghas, our work sanghas, and our social justice sanghas. That's our practice in action. It's interdependence in action, because interdependence can only exist as a verb. It only exists as relationship. It's just bells ringing and bells responding. There's a koan that I think presents an image of this beautifully. It's case 100 of the Blue Cliff record, titled Haryo's Blown Hair Sword. A monk asked Haryo, "What is the blown hair sword?" Haryo said, "Each branch of coral supports the moon." And just imagine that image, each branch of coral supporting the moon. The reflection of the moon over the coral in the ocean. I just find it so beautiful. So in this koan, we have this classic dialogue in which a monk asks a rather earnest question about practice. What is the blown hair sword? It said a blown hair sword is so sharp that if you blew a strand of hair on it, it would cut the hair in two. This makes me think of the sort of prajna, of wisdom, cutting through delusion and confusion. And isn't that the heart of what brings a lot of us to practice and why we continue to practice after many, many years? What is this sword of wisdom? And how do we wield it skillfully? What is skillful manifestation of our Zen practice, of our lives? And Haryo so simply and so beautifully goes beyond the complications of this question and points to the heart of the matter. He just says, each branch of coral supports the moon. What is Sangha? What is being in the world? Existing in relationship, but branches of coral supporting the moon. As I look at all our little Zoom boxes, I see many branches of coral. Each of us, the branches of coral, the entire coral, many generations of coral before us. But each of us also the ocean reflecting and supporting the moon, reflecting and supporting the whole world. I often feel helpless when I'm faced with what feels like an endless fight for racial justice. You know, this last few weeks, seeing what's happening in Afghanistan, the climate crisis, countless terrible injustices. But I find this koan to be somewhat encouraging for our times. Each branch of coral supports the moon. Each of us supporting the world. Each of us making a difference, together as the body of the coral and as each branch. All of us connected and inseparate. And I think the framework of intersectionality really captures this. How our many identities overlap and combine, contributing to and compounding both our individual oppression and our individual privilege. I work with an organization that serves transgender people of color, centering around Black transgender youth and surviving sex workers. And if we take this intersection of a Black transgender woman, she has to face racism, transphobia, and misogyny, not only from our country's institutionalized systems of violence, but also within their own families and their own communities. Each of these intersecting identities exponentially compounding upon one another. And every week, another Black transgender person is murdered. It's a deadly intersection. And many we don't even hear about because often police and media misgender them and dead name them. And at another time in my life, I might have asked myself, what do these issues have to do with me? Here I am, a white presenting cisgender queer guy. And it's taken me a while, but I've come to understand that it has everything to do with me. That this is my fight too. And I need to put my own skin in the game and use my own intersectional identities of privilege to uplift others. If a Black transgender woman can be liberated from our violent systems of power, then all of us will be liberated. And this too is each branch of coral supporting the moon. All of us in this fight together. All of us with the power to make a difference. Each of us existing in Sangha and in interdependence with one another and the entire world. One bell ringing and another responding. The beauty of our Zen practice and our zazen is that I think eventually our practice encourages us to stop asking, what is this blown hair sword? How do I do this or how do I do that? I think we come to a point where even asking the question becomes superfluous. Instead, as we practice, we start to come to the realization in our very bones that each of us are the branches of coral supporting the moon. We start to realize in our bones our interconnected being. And then the functioning of that realization naturally is that we simply wield the sword, trusting our innate wisdom and responding in whatever way we know how. And what we do and how we respond, it looks different for all of us. And honestly, I have no doubt that all of us here are all wielding this blown hair sword, whether we realize it or not. Many of us serve others every day and don't even realize it. By sitting zazen, we are serving. By simply manifesting our innate goodness, by showing up the best way we can, we are serving. And we just need to carry on and sit a lot more too, and continue showing up. And while there's always so much work to do, there's also good news. It said that 2 other venerable adepts were asked the same question: what is the blown hair sword? And these 2 other adepts both answered, complete. Just that one word, complete. And I find that answer to also be very heartening. On the surface, it might seem like a different answer, but I think they're both pointing to the same thing. Sometimes the reflection of the moon can become distorted. Naturally, waves wash over the coral, and sometimes it's hard to even see the moon. But whether it's waves or serene waters, it's all still complete. The coral, the ocean, the waves, and the moon, they're all still there, existing in relationship, distorted or clear, simply ebbing and growing and flowing. To use the infamous words of Shinryu Suzuki, each of you is perfect the way you are, and you can use a little improvement. The world too, perfect and complete, but it could use a lot of improvement. I really love the verse that accompanies this koan, so I'm going to finish my talk with it. And I won't dilute it by trying to add my own words to it. I think I've blasphemed enough this evening. But here's the verse. when it is necessary to even the uneven, even the great adept seems inept. Sometimes on the finger, sometimes in the palm. Leaning against the sky, it shines on the snow. Even a great smith cannot hone it. Even a master craftsman wouldn't finish polishing it. It is exceptional, unique. Each branch of coral supports the moon. Thank you for your practice.